Breakout session for, let's see, for drones, robotics, etc. And like I told our panelists before we began, this is not my specialty. Doc, you're my teacher. This is not my specialty at all. And I'm a paper pusher. They're the creative types. So we will, I will guide them as best I can, but I believe that they know what they're talking about pretty well. And so to begin, we'll go ahead and we'll go around the table, we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll get into the specifics. So Joseph, you want to go ahead and go first?
Absolutely. My name is Joseph Collins. I'm the program coordinator for the Challenger Learning Center. Obviously heavily involved in robotics, aerospace, space science, all sorts of things like that. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about this topic today.
I'm Franklin Combs, and I'm a junior at Knott County Central. I've been in the aviation program for 3 years.
My name is James Mays. I'm a sophomore at North County High School. I've been in the Aerospace program for 2 years.
Hey guys, once we get to the end, if the mic doesn't reach down, just speak loudly, we should be fine.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gilbert. I am a senior at the county, and I have been in the aerospace for 3 years now, and I am also going to be taking dual credit classes with aerospace.
I'm Cameron Tyske. I'm a sophomore at North County High School. I've been in the Aerospace program for 2 years. I'm also in the
My name is Zach Collier, and I drove the last 3 students up here today. I'm their teacher. I teach the aerospace pathways at Wolf County High School.
Okay guys, so we'll go ahead and now that we've got our introductions out of the way, go ahead and tell me a little bit about what you all are working on, about some projects that you've undertaken, and then we'll talk a little bit about how the future of robotics, aerospace industry, that sort of thing, can impact our Eastern Kentucky economy. But first, tell me a little bit about what you all are doing.
So as part of the Challenger Learning Center, a big part of what we do is focus on the education, preparing the next generation of students who are going to shape the future around us. A lot of people seem to think that we're kind of on the verge of a technological revolution right now. And I kind of think things work a little bit slower, a little bit more subtly. The future that we're getting ready to move into is one that's going to be created by our students. The future is going to be made by the young people who are here today. So I'm very excited to see where they take us. Now, our goal is to help them prepare and to help them get ready to create that future, to inspire them and show them how we do things so that they can take the positives that we leave for them and continue that forward momentum. So that's a big part of what the Challenger Center is working on, continuing the mission of the Challenger astronauts, as well as NASA and so many of the other wonderful science organizations around us. We want to ensure that we continue learning and continue exploring in robotics, aerospace, engineering, and so much more.
I guess I'll kind of start from my first year and explain from then what we've been doing. My first year was basically, we were just learning about the aviation program since that was the first year we've ever done it at our school. We was learning about all the opportunity aviation had to offer, about drones, and etc. My sophomore year, we really got involved with drones. We competed in a drone race at Hazard Community College that Mr. Green kind of helped us set up and help a lot with the students. And we also went multiple times to the airport and gained hours in flight time and learned about how airports work. This year, we're doing a lot on getting our private pilot's license. We've been working on our inside and outside of school on getting that pilot's license. I've been doing a lot, and just Tuesday, we went to the airport and we each got an hour of flight time towards our private pilot's license. And it was very interesting because we also got to do ground school as well as our own flight.
Okay, so right now in aerospace, we are working on many different things, really. We are doing an entrepreneurship, and we're taking small programs that we can do with the drone or that involves a drone. So like surveying, photography, and things like that. Like, there are many possibilities that we can do as long as we can think of them. There's creative ways, and right now we are trying to find these ways and try to make them a reality.
Okay, great. Anybody have anything to add yet? Okay. This is a learning experience to me, and just by going down the road there on that panel, I learned some. I learned some stuff too. So I want to go ahead and talk about the aerospace engineering industry in Kentucky. We are here to talk about education as well as the economy and what we want the state of the Eastern Kentucky economy to be 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, and throw out some big ideas. So one idea that is a big idea, but it's actually came to life just in the past few years, is the Kentucky aerospace engineering industry. In 2016, the aerospace industry took over as Kentucky's #1 export. And Kentucky was actually #2 in the United States, behind Washington State, in the number of products manufactured and exported and sold abroad of the aerospace industry. Kentucky gained nearly $11 billion in revenue in 2016 alone, just from the aerospace manufacturing industry. So it's amazing what the possibilities that lie ahead, not only as our local economy and our regional economy revitalizes and vamps up a little bit, but also as our nation and our world becomes more technologically advanced because we're interconnected, that sort of thing. So what do you all have to add? This question is fair game for anybody. What do you all have to add about how the aerospace industry is affecting Kentucky's economy, and how we could maybe use that industry to hopefully revitalize the economy here locally?
I guess I'll start. But well, like you said, it has taken over Kentucky economy with aviation and aerospace engineering and all that. And I read somewhere that in about 10 years, there'll be a $20 billion industry with drones alone around Kentucky. And there are many, many possibilities with the aviation thing, including piloting for medical, industrial, survey, and also with the drones, you can also survey, you could be a manufacturer of drones, and general just search and rescue. Kind of went blank, I had something in. Oh yeah, at Morehead State we went and visited last year, and he also told us the same thing about how it was taking over the economy in Kentucky, and he has also said that many of those people who have helped do that came from Morehead, from their aerospace program. They've helped make parts that make microsatellites, and they have made their own microsatellites and see into space, which they operate from their campus.
Sure, so I'll go ahead and build on a little bit more about what he said there. So according to statistics, the drone industry around 2015 was about a $3 billion industry. Now, we're expected to see that grow until about 2020, up to about a $10 billion industry. Now, some people think that's going to go even further, exponentially, into about 2025 being about a $90 billion industry. So we're expecting to see that same kind of exponential growth. And there are so many ways that we can apply drone technology, robotics, engineering, both at the well-known levels of manufacturing. Someone has to produce these parts. Where do these drone parts, these airplane parts, all of this aerospace equipment and technology come from? So why not Kentucky? We have talked a lot today about the downward decline of Kentucky, especially Eastern Kentucky. Population, jobs, money, all of those things, we're seeing those dwindle, aren't we? Now, as someone who's very familiar with science and engineering, I know how inertia works. there is a reason for that downward decline. And if there is nothing done about that, it's going to continue that downward trend. We're going to see that arrow continue dropping down further and further into the red if we don't do something to change that negative trend. Now, when we're talking about all the different ways we can apply drone technology, I want to touch on a couple of those, and again, talk about some of those big ideas and those jobs that don't exist yet, jobs which might be occupied by some of our students that are here today. There was a survey done in real estate that found that 83% of the home buyers that were surveyed preferred a realtor that used drone technology to survey houses and properties. So really think about that. 83% of home buyers preferred a group that used drone technology. Other companies like Amazon, DHL are experimenting with drone delivery services. An airborne drone can carry a 5-pound package at 45 miles an hour. There are also numerous other applications. As part of the Challenger Center, we're heavily involved in space science. Just like you mentioned, thin satellite technology is an increasingly disruptive industry, meaning that it has taken off and the demand has exploded for that. We're actually working with middle school and high school students currently to build and program their own thin satellites, which will be launched on a rocket in the upcoming months or years. NASA is actually working on autonomous drone technology. We talked about programmers earlier today. Someone is going to have to program and design those systems to work with those drones. Something that NASA is working on with Mars exploration, asteroid mining, and things like that is the development of something like a mothership drone, where we have a lander or a rover which provides solar power to smaller autonomous drones that can deploy and scout areas which are not normally available to rover technology. Places like a volcanic crater, lava tubes down in a ravine, places where we might want to mine or settle a colony in the future that we can't view or see any other ways. So there are all sorts of different applications for this drone and robotic technology. The jobs that don't exist yet, but that someday in the future will be filled by these students. We might see the very first in Eastern Kentucky, drone search and rescue specialists, drone aerospace exports, things like that. So that's why I think it's important for these students to really get exposure and get experience to everything that's going on out here. Because I want to see where they go. I want the first experts in drone and manufacturing technology to be, maybe right here on their panel with us.
Aviation has taken off, like majorly in Kentucky, and not only is this a good thing for us, because we're actually being recognized for something good, but it's providing more jobs and providing more opportunities for people that are in high school, for people that are just coming out of school or going into college, because we all just think that there are just normal jobs out there, just like doctoring, nursing. No one really acknowledged that there's drone opportunities or that there's aerospace opportunities or aircraft opportunities. We're all just like, yeah, there's these normal jobs instead of, hey, there are these enormous jobs that are about to take off in Kentucky. But we are known as like bluegrass horses and just simple things like that. Now we are trying to be known as, smart. We're trying to be known as aviation. And we are trying to get that out there so people will understand that, we're not just about horses. We are about everything else too, but we're not being recognized.
I don't need the microphone, but I got this teacher voice that can carry. But to tag on to what you were saying about the realtors and about industries that are using drones more and more, one of the things that we want our students to be able to do, and hopefully we can get this added as a career readiness measure, is to take the remote pilot and command tests the FAA has, because in order to operate a drone commercially, even a realtor has to pass that test. And so now, hopefully, we're hoping that since there's a bit of a delay maybe in getting people certified in that particular area, we can sort of jump in there with our students. And again, a student only has to be 16 to actually pass that test. They have to be 16, they have to be able to speak English fluently, and they have to be able to basically just pass a knowledge exam, and that's it. And so if we can manage to get them to do that, then they can actually be the pilot in command. So I hopefully, my plan for our students is for me to be the pilot in command as they're being trained, because since I have that certificate, I can fly. Basically they can fly under my direct supervision. As long as I'm standing there, as long as I'm with them, they can operate our unmanned system with my supervision. So they can essentially come up with ideas to start businesses within our community and within our communities here in Eastern Kentucky, in order to contract with businesses. That is to provide these services. We've actually already had offers from people, and I haven't actually even gotten us officially recognized yet as a fundraiser. So. For our school. So we've already had people asking, when can you come and take pictures, or when can you come and video for our business. So I mean, this is a demanding, this industry's in demand, and again, that's just with visible photography. The engineering component of using the drones, that's what I'm really trying to get my students to understand, is that they look, there's a wow factor to it. But when you see what somebody can do with one in terms of surveying, with terms of stockpile analysis, thermal scanning, checking solar panels to see whether or not they're working right, electrical power systems, being able to just tell from a thermal picture, what's working and what isn't, is a lot cheaper than paying somebody, to climb up there amongst all the wires, and a whole lot safer. So that technology's here. We already have groups in Kentucky doing it. The unmanned services out of Lexington, they're already, a big part of that industry here in Kentucky. So that's just a few possibilities.
Great, that leads right into my next question, actually. I was going to, ask the two schools that we have represented on the panel here. You mentioned the computer navigation program that you have in your school, and then of course Mr. Collier just gave us a really good rundown of the drone program that they have in his school. And I know that, Dr. Haritas at Belford High School, they have a great robotics program. They go out of the area and compete at like nationwide, regional and nationwide conventions and competitions. So, feel free to chime in here too, Doc. Because he's just as qualified as anybody I know. I just wanted to ask you all a little bit about the programs that you have in your school. Of course, like I said, Dr. Collier, or Mr. Collier gave us a really good rundown. But how many students do you have involved in the programs? How did it come about, and how are you working to increase those programs? Just in case we have any other educators or school administrators in the crowd today that might be interested in getting that started in their school districts or in their schools.
In our school, our third year class is around 4 people. It's not really big. We had a lot more, but they just kind of phased out, I guess. And our first year is around 17. Yeah, around 17. But I'm trying to get more students interested in the aviation program, but it's hard to get higher classes because it's a 4-year program. So I'm wanting to get freshmen when they first start to be like, hey, this is a program that will really help you in the future if you're excited about drones and aviation, piloting, any of that.
So as part of the Challenger Learning Center, education is a huge part of what we do. Now, we work primarily with the middle school age range, but we have a lot of other opportunities for both younger and older students. We feel that it's absolutely critical to provide that early age exposure so that when a student enters high school, drones are not a foreign concept. They're familiar with ideas like electronics, coding, manufacturing, and things like that. We're actually just beginning our first LEGO League season, where students across Eastern Kentucky are going to be building their own autonomous robots, learning the basics of programming, competing in our annual tournament, which is going to take place in December. We're also working on a number of drone-related programs, both with KVEC, with Hazard Community Technical College, as well as some of our own lead programs, teaching drone coding. How do we create an autonomous drone? Can we teach a middle school student to pick up an interface and teach a drone to do something? So all of these robotics programs are kind of tied together. We also focus on electronics and basic science. We've had a number of STEM outreach programs. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the acronym STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. that early exposure that shows students what's out there. So many times when we talk to students about manufacturing or engineering, what an engineer does, they don't really have any idea what that means. So our goal is to reach out to the schools, to visit the schools and work with the students, or bring the students to us, to fly through our simulated missions, to let students see what the future can be like, what exists out there for them, both in terms of the careers that are available currently, learning those basic skills like electrical circuits, soldering, things like that, or to talk about the jobs of the future, being a physicist or an astronaut, working on drones that are going to fly around inside the International Space Station. Japan actually recently sent up their own both remote control and semi-autonomous drone that takes part in their Kiwo research lab on board the International Space Station. So right now, there are the first generation of off-Earth remote operated drone pilots. So that's something that we really want to see grow. We want to see the students of today take on those future jobs.
Well, the first year of aerospace, there was a variety of us. I mean, there was many people there were seniors, middle schoolers.
21.
Yeah, 21. And now that there's a third year, since it was 3 years ago, there's only 2 people left. And that is in the third class. As he said before, people fade out. But I mean, that's okay, because at least they tried it, they realized they didn't like it, but they know it's here. Right now, there are
6 and 7.
yeah, there's 6 in the second year. And of course, people fade out of that one too. But that's okay.
We had what, you guys had 18 last year? We had 18 last year, and then we had 15 actually in the second year last year, of which 6 continued. So that's a better percentage. And then this year we've got, in my first year aerospace this year, we have 22 students right now who we're enrolling in. So that's the biggest class. We had 24, but some of them, and I got this line a lot, was, I like you, but I don't like computers. So I have a one-to-one classroom, so they have to learn how to use computers. So, you think the kids just naturally gravitate towards technology now, but a lot of them, for whatever reason, don't. And they just don't. They're, for whatever reason, we have to, again, talking about with building that skill set younger and younger, we've got to dig down into that middle school and elementary school population and try to build those skills for this next generation of jobs and professions.
When I came into aerospace, I just thought, hey, I'm going to learn how to fly. That's just all I'm going to do. But in third year, for 3 years, I have realized that it's way much more than that. Our first year, we got a drone, and I'm like, why are we getting a drone? Because when drones came out, only thing there was negative news. Like, people are stalking each other, people are flying over the White House, and it's just, I was like, how could this benefit us as a school? And it's just, I've realized so much how it could, and I've experienced them, and we've done many things to further our education with this tool. We have learned soldering, circuit boarding, electric, and it's just, way much more than flying a plane.
I just wanted to chime in on what she said. There's a lot more to the aviation program than just learning to fly a plane. When we got our racing drone to compete as a community college, we had to build that from the ground up with the package we was sent, and then we had to program it. We learned soldering and how to put it together. Alright, but yeah, there's a lot more to it than just learning to fly a plane. And what he was saying, a lot of the students didn't like using computers and stuff, and there was a lot of that too. And we do need to start at younger and younger ages and get students more involved with the new technology. And that will also help increase their interest because that's what they're used to. When they go home, they're not writing in a notebook or something. No, they're normally on some device or some new technology.
Okay, yeah, absolutely fascinating stuff, guys. And aviation isn't just about flying planes, but that's what I want to talk about right now for just a minute. You mentioned that you're working on aviation. You were working on, did you say you were getting your pilot's license?
Yes.
Did I hear that right? Okay. And you are from? Knott County. Airports. What airport do you use? Because, I mean, there's, in our first panel of what we want Eastern Kentucky to be, someone did mention that, I brought up infrastructure, and the one of the panelists mentioned that, roadways, bridges, that sort of thing, but also airports.
Yes.
That's a big thing. It's like, I'm from Pike County, we've got an airport in Pikeville. It was supposed to go commercial. It never happened. So we have a lack of airports in this area. So how do you deal with that?
Well, the airport we've been going to is the Wendell Ford Airport here in Hazard. It is a uncontrolled airport, and what that means is that it doesn't have a control tower, but that doesn't mean that it's Armageddon, people just land there whenever they want. No, they're connected by radio, and they're their own airport. All those pilots who fly over are connected, and they're constantly talking to each other like a control tower would be doing that. And then there's the one in Pikeville. But honestly, at our learning age, it's best that we learn from those uncontrolled airports. Learn from there, then start building up. Because when we was talking to the instructor about flying, he was like, you always want to start your students at an uncontrolled, then about 20 hours get them introduced to controlled airports and controlled airways and all of that. Because you got to take one step at a time while getting your pilot's license. It's not, you got to learn all this at once. It's just one step at a time. And there's also, I heard that there's a drone research facility on the Knott Perry line that Paul Green was telling me about. They're wanting to build one of those so we can, for drones that need airstrips to take off, or just a place where not only students but adults or people who are interested in drones can come, congregate, and just learn about them.
Absolutely. And Joseph, I had something to ask you. If you have anything to add to that, feel free to. But you mentioned middle school education. Challenger Learning Center reaches out to middle school students to try to get them educated at an early age, whether it be drones, the coding drones, that sort of thing. I want to ask you about adult education. Because that's a big topic here today, because we have thousands and thousands of people out of work here in Eastern Kentucky. We talked about some of them, like in Pike County, are going over to computer coding. Some in Floyd County are going over to electrical engineering, that sort of thing. Does the Challenger Learning Center, have you all offered anything along the lines of adult education, or would that be something that the center would be thinking about doing in the future? Where does that stand?
I'll address both. So let me touch on the first question first. I think these guys down here can probably address airports and the needs there better than I can. I was going to speak about Wendell H. Ford, so I'll leave that part of the question to them. I will provide a little bit of a tangent on that. There was a lot of discussion earlier today about remote work, being able to work in a community, doing a job for someone who may be elsewhere. So on the topic of airports, I think that's kind of an important relationship with drones and certain aspects of aerospace technology. You may not need a full-fledged airport to perform drone research or things like that. We can perform a number of critical jobs here in Eastern Kentucky without the need to have an airport or anything like that. Likewise, just like we talked about real estate, construction, things like that, these are things where you may not need a large external facility, something that a student could get a certification in. Interesting statistic that I found earlier was that there are now more registered drone pilots in America than there are plane pilots, airline pilots, things like that. The figures that I read placed at about 320,000 registered pilots, 325,000 registered drone controllers. So it's very important to understand that from a career aspect. Drones are growing faster than ever. So you asked about adult education and things like that. A large part of what we do is working with professional development. particularly with the focus on teachers, but that doesn't mean it has to be limited there. In education, there's an increasing focus on engineering at the early levels. With the release of the next generation science standards, more students are getting exposed to engineering than ever before. Many teachers, especially at these lower grades, are being thrust into curriculum and content that they are not familiar with. We have math teachers and science teachers who fill those very traditional roles who have no experience with engineering concepts. So again, that's another portion of what the Challenger Learning Center strives to do, working with not just students, but also adults, because there are many adults, especially here in Kentucky. We've talked about retraining and things of that nature. So that is absolutely critical. So we do offer those services to teachers, and we have the capability to provide that to anyone who needs it. So that's a big part of what we want to do going forward, providing that comfort and exposure to anyone who is seeking it. These out-of-work coal miners that we talk about so much, there are so many careers out there, both existing and new careers that we can pursue if we have the foundation and the baseline there. And that's a big part of what our job is to provide, not just speaking for myself or for the Challenger Learning Center, but for the adults, for the professionals in here who can create that foundation for everyone in Eastern Kentucky.
And I just wanted to add on to earlier for what I said. This may be kind of off topic, but I was talking to one of the manager of the Ford Airport, and he was talking about a student at the age of 14 who really wanted to get his pilot's license, but his family didn't have the money to get him that, because every hour of flight is like 140 for the hour, then 30 for the instructor. However, this student talked with the owner of the airport, and the owner sorted out a deal that he worked for the airport over the summer and gained 25 flight hours for just working for him. And I just thought that was interesting, because it was a student who was devoted to what he wanted to do. And it's something that if you want to pursue, you just can't do in class. It's something that you've got to be devoted outside of class, working with, say, the Challenger Center to gain that knowledge, and also inside of class to help your peers from what you've learned outside of class.
We have also been working on our pilot's license, but we're not quite as far ahead as he is. But we have, of course, there's pilot license. But we've also been looking at drone license and handheld radio license. And then we've been learning about ground schooling and taxiing. And it's just, it all is just like built on each other. It's not, you just choose one, continue. It's all just like, once you're interested in one, it's like, you're interested in all. So we are trying to get our handheld radio license right now. So we will be able to talk to control towers, understand what they're going through. We learn some basic ground schooling, know the terms, know the classes of airports, so we can get more knowledge and understanding of what's coming through.
Just add on to that just a bit. She was talking about the radio skills and licensing. We do want to add on ham radio certification to our program. Luke Gilley, who's not here today, he's been really helpful in helping us with that, and he's from Middlesboro. And there's, in addition to that, just to operate a drone within controlled airspace. Within certain airspaces, you have to be able to have two-way communication with the air traffic control. And so that's, again, part of licensing. I mean, there might be a need to use an unmanned system somewhere within that controlled airspace. And to do that, you have to be able to use radio to communicate. And just actually for the design and building component, I mean, that's how your controller talks to the drone. All that process should be interconnected. So.
Absolutely amazing work they're doing. We've got 5 minutes. I want to take the last 5 minutes to do something that I think we should have been doing all day. Let's open up the floor to questions, just in case anybody here might have a question for anybody on the panel. We'll take the last 5 minutes and we'll do that. Yes, sir.
Just one thing, because I have to do it, because I'm a former Air Force officer. Folks that are at the high school level working on the aviation program, give that a thought as you move forward, keep that in mind. It's the drone opportunity in particular instance, and the sensor suites that go with it. It's not just the drone piloting, it's also operating the sensors that go with it and analyzing the data that they gather. Those are sort of three separate things that we do. Just keep that in mind as you go forward. It worked out great. We had 10 years on active duty and we loved it. So, just wanted to throw that out.
Anybody else?
At Somerset Community College, we have a 3D printing certificate program, and I know 3D printing is becoming huge, yet I see the faces, huge, especially in aviation. I don't know how much yet in aerospace and flight, but it's becoming very large. And with Kentucky being so big now in aviation, have you had any experience with it? Is that being integrated into your program here?
Our class, we have a 3D printing class, but we haven't really used it for aviation, but I've read that Moorhead at their aerospace engineering department, they have used 3D printers to help make parts for their satellites and many other instances of companies using it to make parts for their aircrafts or drones or other stuff.
I'm from Belfry High School. This year, one of my students, our program in aerospace science, these kids are building 3D drones using 3D printing. That's their aim, and they have to compete in the competition this year.
Yes, sir.
The high schools in the area have similar programs.
Yes, like I know there's multiple schools that when we did our drone racing who came and performed, and they had their own.
So KVAC promotes, we're actually going to have a day on October the 4th. So any school in KVAC that KVAC serves, we will provide them resources and help them to get the aviation aerospace program started. I think Wolf County had already started their program, and then they kind of joined in with ours. There was, I think, one other school that had, maybe Middlesboro. But we now, I think we have 9 high schools that are participating. We expect that number to grow. We're actually going to do the drone race again this year. We're going to open that up to a minimum of 20 high schools, or 20 middle school or high schools that can participate in the drone build and drone race. And that can include schools that are offered the courses or clubs that want to start. That's a way for them to get involved. So if you know of your school, if they're not currently participating and they're interested in that, then you need to just have them contact me and we'll try to help them to get a program up and going.
Okay, so like on the question about 3D printing is my life. I love it. We have 2 3D printers. We have a mini one and we have an actual one. For aerospace class, we have built our own rockets out of 3D printing. But it was definitely not easy as it sounds. We had to do a lot of mathematics to determine the dimensions and which ones would fit with this and to make the parts the same. And then we had a body, because the body wasn't 3D printed or it would have been way too heavy. But we had a body made of cardboard. And we had to fit our pieces on that cardboard, and it just involved a lot of math. And we did that for our STEM camp. Now in class, we are doing entrepreneurship. Of course, I told you guys in the beginning. And we are trying to come up with really great ideas to start small businesses here in Kentucky or here in our county. And 3D printing is like on majorly here. Because we are discussing like making cell phone like cases. Because I mean that would be a great investment. Everyone has a cell phone, so it's like we could get a lot of money from 3D printing. We can design and learn from 3D printing, and we also learn mathematics, creative skill thinking. It's amazing.
Well, they blow my mind. So let's give them a round of applause.
quick regarding, again, the 3D printing that is increasingly used, particularly in NASA and space science, when we're talking about off-Earth projects where it may not be feasible to have redundant parts. You may have seen like the Apollo 13 issue where you have to put something together very quickly. You can't just ship it to the next town over. So we do have a 3D printing system on board the International Space Station currently, so that if there is a screw or a bolt or something that they need, it's not a mass issue. We don't have to worry about sending it up on the next shuttle. We can 3D print it right there at the space station. And that's something we're going to see increasingly with satellite technology, off-Earth colonies, and things of that nature. Also, NASA is using 3D printed technology currently to work on their next Mars drone project, working on a drone that can fly across the surface of Mars. Traditional drones won't function at all on the Martian surface due to its weak atmosphere, it's very thin atmosphere. So NASA is using that 3D printed technology as part of its prototyping for that next generation of off-Earth drones.
Absolutely.